This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's our annual Best in Beer Critics edition of the podcast. For some context, we have just spent the last couple of days here in our Fort Collins office tasting through the wild card submissions as well as a number of our top scoring beers for over the past year for Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. We've got Joe Stange, Kate Bernot, and Stan Hieronymus here. We've been going through this, doing the Lord's work to figure out, what our best 20 beers of 2025 will be. And as we did last year, we're capping it off with a podcast covering their critics lists for each of their personal individual top 10 beers, as well as a few other questions from those lists, as you will also see printed in the Best in Beer issue of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, along with a few other critics lists that will not be covered here in podcasts because, we can't share all of it out there just on the podcast. We need people to go read the magazine as well. Anyway, welcome back to the podcast, Stan.
Well, thanks.
Great to have you back. It's been great judging beer with you for the last couple of days. Kate, welcome back to the podcast.
It's so nice to be here.
Always great to have you. And then Joe back once again, although we've been spending the last week and Joe was on did a cameo appearance on the Simcoe 25 podcast a little while back.
Yeah, it's always fun to get to be on the microphone, Jamie. Sometimes he lets me talk.
Sometimes. Of course, people will have just heard our Best in Beer episode by the time they listen to this, but through the magic of time shifting, we're recording this before that one, and no one will ever hear it. Through the course of this episode, we're going to talk about each of their top 10 beers of the year. We're going to also talk about some of the special questions, one that Joe concocted about a song, a moment, and a beer, and of course, the place or experience that convinced you that craft beer is not dead. Because of course, all of us here know it's not, and this hyperbole out there is anti-productive, but also not necessarily factually based. We've all seen a number of things this year that have convinced us otherwise, and there's lots and lots of life, creativity, and joy left in craft beer, and we're going to celebrate that because that's what we do. Before we talk about these things, if you're looking for a brewery chiller that's worry-free and tough on GWP, then look no further. G&D Chiller's Elite 290 Series chiller uses propane as a natural refrigerant with extremely low global warming potential. This natural, highly efficient refrigerant with near zero GWP will help lower your facility's energy costs and impact on the environment. G&D is committed to a greener, more efficient future. Visit gdchillers.com to learn more. And Berkeley Yeast just launched Dry Tropics London, their best-selling liquid yeast strain, now with all the ease of use benefits of dry yeast. Dry Tropics London delivers the soft, pillowy mouthfeel and juicy character you'd expect from a top-tier London ale strain, but with a serious upgrade, a burst of thiols that unleash vibrant, layered notes of grapefruit and passion fruit. A lot of brewers love the clean passion fruit you get from Tropics, but they don't want every IPA to be a tropical fruit bomb. At the dry yeast price point, you can pitch and ditch without breaking the bank, or you can co-pitch with your house strain to adjust the intensity of the notes. And with nationwide free shipping, there's never been a better time to try Dry Tropics. Order now at berkeleyyeast.com and experience the ease and impact of Dry Tropics London yeast. Also, as breweries expand beyond beer into other segments like mocktails and CBD beverages, Old Orchard is here to help. They can formulate custom blends featuring specialty ingredients. Whether trending flavor additions or nostalgic favorites, the next best thing is around the corner at Old Orchard. More information and free samples are waiting at oldorchard.com/brewer. That's oldorchard.com/brewer. Mocktails, CBD beverages, maybe even THC beverages now too. I guess, those flavors come in handy for all sorts of things. We're going to talk about some THC beverages on this, just trigger warning for anyone that we might upset about that. But let's start out first with a little roundup. We just spent a couple of days sitting here in the conference room at the office, tasting through all the submissions that people sent to us, also a number of the high scores throughout the year. Stan, you have any takeaways from that? What were some things that popped out to you? Are there any trends that you noticed?
That the judges through the year, the panelists, are pretty good at what they do. And sometimes when we judge beers blind that we think are great, we don't give them great scores. And for one thing, I think that means experience is part of it. And the other is, quite frankly, we're not particularly special.
Fair. Kate, any big picture takeaways for you?
I guess this shouldn't surprise me, but I thought some of the most interesting and compelling beers, and maybe some of the beers we had the most discussion around, were at that intersection of hoppy lagers, cold IPAs, that intersection of really crisp, light body and tons of hops seems to be where there's so much energy happening in brewing right now, and so much finesse and finer points to pick apart. And I think those were really fun to judge with all of you, and to hear the discussion around was really fun.
I think we're all here for lower ABV, the beers that deliver that same beautiful hop expression that we all love so much, and having them in a drinkable package like that. It's been awesome to watch over the last year or two just how that whole category has blown up, and how much interesting work brewers are doing and creating really compelling drinkable beers with beautiful expression in that kind of ABV range. Joe, any interesting high-level takeaways for you?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention something similar about this sort of intersection of West Coast, which is getting bigger, and cold IPA and West Coast pills too. I think there's a lot of overlap there with yeasts and a lot of other things. And there's a move toward, I think, these sort of more delicate flavors. And I'm not talking about aromas, which are obviously still big and bright and juicy and punchy, but on the palate, they're just often really delicate and really balanced too. Like, I think there's a harder difficulty level there to achieve that technically. I'm saying this free of value. Like, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. It probably is a good thing. I do miss the more sharper bite, the bitterness. That's me. And the malt then that probably should come with that to balance it out. So I'm kind of missing that, but at the same time, it's pretty cool to watch West Coast IPA in particular move toward this like super smooth drinkability.
Well, let's jump right into our critics list. Again, these are your top 10 personal beers. All of those folks reading the magazine can see these lists printed in the magazine, but and of course they get our top 20 beers of 25 that are determined through a different process. We, of course, judge throughout the year, as Stan mentioned. And Stan, when you compliment our blind judges, you're also in some way complimenting yourself, because you are one of those blind judges that also jumps in, throughout the course of the year.
The blindest of the lot.
What you lack in eyesight, you make up with other senses, Stan. You're compensating in other directions. Sure. Well, let's talk. We'll start with you, Stan. What is the first beer on your personal critics list?
So it's Baccio Fio Barbera. It's from the north of Argentina. I was down there for a conference in August, and there's a party at the end of the conference. This is a brew pub that unfortunately I didn't get to. And they found me at this party with their bottle version of mixed fermentation beers. There's a really nice Berliner Weiss in there, for instance. But what was super interesting was a beer. Barbera, of course, would imply it's going to be red wine. And this was co-fermented. It's a Saison co-fermented with red wine, and really reminiscent of the sparkling Shiraz beers that are served in Australia at Christmas time. And it's like neon red in the glass, this beautiful pink top, and just a menagerie of flavors that West Coast IPAs are still struggling to get that much fruit in the beer, which is okay, because I think there's a place for beers like this where it's pomegranate and plums and strawberries, just super earthy. And also a beer meant to be served with Argentine barbecue. So it's definitely a beer that stands up to meat, and they like their meat in Argentina.
Fantastic. Kate, what's the first beer on your list? And again, these are no particular order. These are just the way they appear in writing or so.
My first beer is a collaboration, actually. I drank it at Here Today Brewing in Seattle, but it was a collaboration with Formula Brewing, Hold the Phone Best Bitter. This was a recommendation from the nice gentleman behind the bar at Here Today. Thank you, Texas Dave, for your excellent recommendation. This was such a nice experience because obviously the beer made quite an impression. I loved the malt character. There's this like real whip crack of bitterness at the end that, you know, hallmark of the style just makes it endlessly drinkable. And I thought, wow, this is what sort of like the pub experience is. You go, a friendly bartender recommends something really great, and then you drink maybe a lot of them. I kind of wished I could have stayed longer and had more of these at the brewery. I had to be somewhere else afterwards, and it was hard to pull myself away from drinking these. So a very memorable beer and a great experience with staff who can really lead you towards something great, which is always a plus.
That's fantastic. Joe, what's first on your list?
I'm gonna start and end my journey in Asia. And the first beer is from Thailand, and it's my favorite fruit beer that I had all year, including a few gems we had the past couple days with the best in beer tasting. And this is from a brewery called Samada in Bangkok. The beer is called Mango Sticky Rice, and that is exactly what it tastes like. And I'm not just any mango sticky rice, but the best mango sticky rice you've ever found. When you find it with the mango at like that perfect state of ripeness where it's still a little bit tangy and tart, but also very sweet with the rice and the coconut milk, and it all comes together. And then it was so delicious just because mango sticky rice is one of the most delicious things in the world. And here it was in beer form. The brewer Kun Chot is like, the Samada is like the urban artifact of Thailand. Like he specializes in these, what we'd call smoothie sours, maybe these really, I just call them fruit beers. They taste like fruit. And this was just absolutely hit the numbers on it. And I'm still thinking about that beer.
Awesome. Stan, what's next on your list?
So it would be okay with an exclamation point from Blue Jay Brewing in St. Louis. It's just a terrific Hefeweizen. You know, you don't need a lot of words to describe it. You know, it's weedy, which is an important part, nice and fluffy, some banana bread, and just the right amount of peppery phenolics. But they have a really nice beer garden too, but when you're sitting at the bar, it's hard not to think, and we lived in St. Louis for quite a while, beginning in 2011 when things were just starting to explode in St. Louis. Joe did a really nice story for the New York Times about that when you had the first four in the Vanguard. Blue Jay is, of course, I don't know how many waves we are now, but you realize that Anheuser-Busch never made a wheat beer that you would remember. It didn't make a wheat beer for almost the first 150 years. And had they not been acquired by InBev, arguably this brewery would not exist and you wouldn't get to drink this Hefeweizen, which would be sad.
Hefeweizen on the list. Fantastic. Kate, what's next on your list?
I have a Keller beer called What's Been Before from Marlowe Artisanal Ales in, gosh, I hope I'm going to say the name of this town right, Mamaroneck, New York. Fun to say. This was brewed as Helles, and but then obviously the kind of unfiltered portion of it just makes everything a little bit more. So it's like, ooh, when I want a Helles plus 1.5, I don't know, dialed up a little bit. I loved the esters and the way they played with these really zesty herbal hops super nicely. I'm a big, I don't know, I was so laser focused on beer's texture this year. I mean, it's always a component of enjoying a beer, but I don't know, for some reason this year I was just really thinking about texture all the time. And these malts were really kind of creamy and, I mean, not chewy, but like really filling the mouth while still being pretty light at the finish. And I just really liked that it was a Helles, but a little more. And it was a really pleasure to drink, and I wish I could get more of it.
We've definitely all been talking about texture and foam significantly, especially over the last couple of days. I think we all agree this proliferation of advanced hop products is great from a flavor perspective. We're all for it, but man, you take out T90s and whatnot, and your foam and your texture can absolutely suffer. And we noticed it in a number of beers. And I think as we taste through what's truly great and decide on what we feel we want to stand behind as saying is great, those beers that can provide that texture and that foam and hold on to it, and that visual and mouthfeel experience as well as that flavor experience, get all of that together. That's what makes a truly great beer. And I think you're 100% right about that. Joe, what's next on your list?
Well, this one, if I don't mention it, then people may never know how close it came to cracking our best 20 this year. In fact, if there was a number 21, I think this would have been it, because it was right there at the end. And that's Reflection Chamber 2024 from Alma Mater in Kansas City. It's a barley wine, barrel aged. I think all around 2 years in Heaven Hill barrels. It was just like everything you kind of want from a barley wine in terms of like layers of sugar darkness. Get like caramels and toffees and dark brown sugars, and then these roasty edges, slight smoky tinges, and then of course there's that like kind of tangy dried fruit you look for in a barley wine too. It was sweet, of course, but there was also this tannic edge at the end that kind of like scraped all that off and like had you ready to go back and find out what else was in there. It was a super fun beer, easy to drop that in my top 10.
It came down to a head-to-head tasting as the last thing we did to determine that last spot on the list. And man, it was close. It was so close. That's an excellent beer. All right, Stan, what's next on your list?
Well, the brewery is Care Forgot Beer Craft, and the beer is the Rice Man Special. All those together seem like a lot to say at one time. So Beercraft's been around a little more than a year now, and it is wedged in the small space right next to the Avenue Pub on St. Charles in New Orleans, one of the more renowned beer bars in the United States that is still operating. It's a rice lager, so it's nice and floral, has an herbal note on the nose, it's crackery on the tongue, and perfectly balanced. The collaboration is actually with the Iceman Special, which is a psych rock, jam heavy rock quartet, which comes from the Bayou country outside of New Orleans. I think there's another crossover there. If you head out to that territory, you're driving past paddies that have rice in them much of the year. Louisiana is the third largest rice producer in the country. And then, of course, the rest of the year, they are giving you crawdads. So,
Good stuff. Kate, what's next on your list?
Heading to the state where I live, Montana, Backslope Brewing in Columbia Falls, Opulence. It's a wild ale with cherries. Actually judged this blindly at the Montana Beer Awards, which is such a fantastic competition. I think I shouted them out on this podcast last year as a really great experience. The organizers continue to refine the judging of that competition, and it's really high caliber for being such a new competition. So anyway, I was judging that and came across this cherry wild ale, and it just blew me and the other judges away. We were like, who slipped a Belgian beer into this Montana beer competition?
It's not a Scotch ale. Come on.
It's not a Scotch ale. What's happening? Every part of the cherry felt like it was part of this beer, from the blossom to the pit to the juice. It just had every reflection of the cherry alongside some kind of dusty cocoa notes. And it was just such a screaming for kind of a dessert moment. And it just blew me away that a small brewery in Montana made this beer. It was such a great surprise.
Awesome stuff. Joe, you go to Europe for your next pick.
I do. Oh, that's you have cheat sheet notes. Yeah, you know where we're going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my next one is the Divanachka from Unitichki. This is Czech lager, Czech pale lager, one of the greats. Unfiltered, 12 degree. And I had a trip to Budapest at the end of January, beginning of February for the Central European Brewers Conference, which was great fun. And I intentionally and selfishly bookended that trip a couple days on both sides with 2 nights in Prague. And I was at Polt every night. Not only Polt, and I didn't only drink this beer, but I was there. Yeah, I think I was there every night. And I would try other things, but I always came back. I just love that big bitterness, 40 plus IBUs, plus all that you'd want from the malt cushion and the service method and everything to just make it all work and come together. It's this thing you just it's really hard to stop drinking it. And I got to give a shout out to the tapster at Polt, Magda Hapova, who's kind of a local celebrity. She is awesome. She doesn't know me. I don't know her, but I sort of admire her from afar across the bar or whatever. And she's just like a queen of hospitality. And she's like makes that place a big part of what it is. It's just really cool place to go. Great beer.
For sure. Stan, what's on your list next?
Fox Farm Posar, which is from Salem, Connecticut. And this is where I confess that sometimes I can be biased. And I need to set those biases aside. In my mind, Grodziski is defined by having that subtle oak smoked wheat malt, as well as the other components. And that's why live oak Grodziski has probably been on my list more than any other beer.
I'm glad to see you mixing it up this year a little bit.
Yes, but I did throw in the name. So this beer is made with...
I suppose it could have been Goldfinger Grodziska, because that was the top scorer for smoked beers in our lagers.
And it also finished second in a competition in Poland this year.
Yeah.
This one was smoked with maple. So it's a maple smoked wheat. It changes the magic word for our discussion today, the texture of the beer. It makes it a little bit richer. But at the bottom, it's still a beer that's about 2 components, and that's smoke and hops. It's got just the right amount of bitterness.
Every time we say the word texture, you have to take a drink at home.
Texture. It's the new buzzword out. It is taking the place of flowable now. We can just kind of go right into that. We're not going to use the word tweed this year, are we? Like, we didn't really find its way into our conversations this time around, but maybe it will. Kate, what's next on your list?
We will travel to my great home state of New Jersey, Atlantic City specifically, for the Seed buckwheat pale lager. Amanda Cardinale is obviously a phenomenal brewer. She, you may have read about her in the pages of the Brewing Industry Guide.
And a case study authored by a certain person.
Not me.
I wrote that.
That's a joke.
And I have the T-shirt, which I paid for, by the way.
Disclosures.
True. I have one of those T-shirts too. The Hail Saison T-shirt.
Not a Saison though, pale lager, with buckwheat, but also with German Diamant hops. And I really liked both of those ingredients in here. I thought the buckwheat had this kind of acorny nuttiness. And the texture of texture. We gotta come up with, but the word mouthfeel is also weird. So anyway, we're going with texture. The body on this beer was great. I think the buckwheat and the Rabbit Hill malting, the barley was really excellent. And then those hops were really fun in there, and I think it gave me something interesting to think about on the hop side. So just really cool ingredient choices, and obviously a phenomenal brewery, and cool to get lagers and saisons from, that are equally standout.
Good stuff. You got a little bit of a throwback on your list next, Joe?
I do. And I hope there really is like one person at home playing the texture drinking game. But anyway, yeah. So I had a great trip to Chicago. I've been wanting to get back there for a few years and finally did it. I think I put on like 10 pounds in 4 days, drinking beer and eating pizza and great. It was just so much fun and seeing some old friends. And anyway, so yeah. And there were a couple of beers that I'm not going to mention them all, but just like kept finding and really, really enjoying, and they're not breaking any new ground by mentioning one of them, but like whether it's in a dive bar on draft or at Wrigley Field, I really enjoyed the Three Floyd Zombie Dust. they call it a pale ale, but it's like big and bitter enough to drink like an old school American IPA, which we've started kind of calling Midwest IPA at times. And this is Midwestern, obviously, out of Indiana. And of course, we all love the West Coast stuff, even as it gets more sort of delicate and approachable. But I still like these like big kind of bruiser type flavors. And enjoying it with pitchers, with good friends, some tavern cut pizza, which sorry to tell John Carruthers is not just a Chicago thing. That's region wide, Midwestern style, and just like big beers like this.
Shots fired. John is listening. All right, we'll get back to more on the list in a second, but first, Indie Hops brings Oregon's natural wonder to brewers, celebrating 16 years of delivering compelling new hop varieties along with classics that thrive in Oregon's terroir. Indie is the original source for Strata, Luminosa, Lorien, Meridian, and their newest variety, Audacia. Release your creativity with the magic of pure, uncut Oregon hops from Indie. Indie Hops' life is short. Let's make it flavorful. And looking for a powerful no-rinse sanitizer that gets the job done fast? Meet SaniClean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals. This EPA-registered PAA-based acid sanitizer is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. Available in 2 convenient sizes, it's ideal for coarse sprayers, fermenters, and more. Trusted by pros, designed for performance, SaniClean PAA Pro helps you brew with confidence. Learn more at 5starchemicals.com. Brew better. Brew with 5 Star. And this episode is sponsored by PackTech, delivering craft beer multi-packing you can trust. PackTech's handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable, helping breweries close the loop and advance the circular economy. With a minimalist design, durable functionality you can rely on, and custom color matching, PackTech helps brands stand out while staying sustainable. Trusted by craft brewers nationwide, they offer a smarter, sustainable way to carry your beer. To learn more, visit packtech-opi.com. That's PackTech, PAKTECH-OPI.com. Stan, you're next up on the list, and this one comes back to Colorado.
Yep. So not far from here, not far from my house. In fact, a few years ago, when we just did one-on-one, this is where Jamie and I recorded the podcast, and it snowed 3 inches while we were there, and that's what happens when you live in Colorado.
So it was probably all gone like several hours after that, too. So
yeah. So this is from Fritz Family Brewing. It's in Niwot, which is outside of Boulder. The beer is Cuckoo for Kolsch. So obviously it's a Kolsch. It's nice and delicate, nice firm, fresh, delicate, a little bit fruity. The best time to drink this is on Wednesdays when they have a Kolsch service. It's nice when you can sit outside. But if it's raining, as it was one time we went this year, sitting inside means at the top of the hour, you get to see more than a dozen cuckoo clocks go off. They don't go off at the same time. Some people probably have a betting game when they bet which one's going to go next. But
are you questioning the German engineering behind these clocks?
I expect they are from many different places. But I wouldn't have the beer on my list if it weren't a 5 Stange beer. It's just really outstanding. And in Colorado, I have had other Colorado Kolsches on my list as well. And this is right up there with them. Just a world-class beer.
The 5 Stange beer. It's worth all 5 of those.
Yes.
I have to figure out how to work that in compliments about Joe. Is he a 1 Stange today or is he a 5 Stange today?
They named the glass after us. Not a lot of people know that.
It does turn out that, of course, 5 Stange equals 1 liter.
Perfect. Kate, what's next on your list?
We'll stay in
the exact opposite of Kolsch.
The exact opposite of Kolsch, but also from nearby where we are recording today in Fort Collins. This is another Realm. It's a barrel-aged imperial stout from Amalgam Brewing. No adjuncts in this, but you would think there are. Obviously, it's the barrels doing all the work. This is 3 years in Bernheim wheat and Elijah Craig bourbon barrels. I really liked, apparently cherries are a theme for me on this list, but there was a really high cherry note, like I'm going to say a glacé cherry, which is a kind of a candied cherry. Maraschino cherries are are a little, I think, more artificial and have kind of like an almond flavor addition sometimes. Glacé cherries are when you are baking and you kind of candy the cherry. So there's that kind of provides, I mean, it's sweet, but there's also like a tartness and an acidity to that cherry note that's in there that I think helps cut through this really indulgent, vanilla, cocoa notes of the stout. It's not at all syrupy or sticky. It kind of drank like a cocktail. And knowing that all of those flavors come from the barrels was really, really cool.
We've had some great beers from them. In fact, some were in contention here for our best in beer for our top 20 and doing some great work over there. Okay, Joe, what's next for you?
Well, we had a fun little trip to New Zealand earlier this year for Hop Harvest, which was hugely educational. And I could easily have picked one of the fresh hop beers. We had so many great like hop forward lagers and things there too. And at the excellent original pub called Motory Inn near Nelson, where we spent a couple of evenings, I forced myself to walk past the fresh hop beers on cask and get this beer on keg just to try something different. It's Castle's Milk Stout. I think probably it's such a fixture that a lot of Kiwi beer geeks like know it and love it and overlook it and don't drink it all the time. And I think I could probably drink this beer all the time. 5.2% ABV. It hits all the marks you'd want from a nice, rich, but really drinkable milk stout. I think there's something like we have the inner child that really wants a big glass of chocolate milk. And the milk stout kind of hits that. Plus, hey, alcohol. And it's just like, it was just hit all those easy pleasure centers that I wanted it to. And also like easily. And I went back to it we found it at one or two other places too. So, and we didn't find it on cask. I thought maybe I'd had it on cask and keg, but no, we didn't find it on cask. So I'm just going to have to go back to Middle Earth and find it.
It was good stuff. I remember it well. And that Motory Inn was an awesome experience.
For sure.
A classic there in the Nelson region. Stan, what's next on your list?
Another throwback beer.
Man, both of you guys with Chicago throwback beers.
You're going to, and also consumed at Wrigley Field. And to me, it is the perfect ballpark beer. It's got, I should say the name of the beer, it's Half Acre Daisy Cutter. And it is a Midwest classic, but even from a can, that little hole at the top of the can, it's just got so much aroma and flavor just bursting out of it that it's a reminder of how good it is. And it certainly helped that the Cubs won that day.
I wish I could say the same about the Cardinals when I was at Wrigley drinking Three Floyds, but yeah.
I should also point out that actually my wife Daria, at the same time that I had the Daisy Cutter, was drinking Zombie Dust.
There you go.
And we should note that there is a serious Cubs versus Cardinals rivalry right here at the table. We won't get into all.
Don't get us started.
We're not going to get started in that. Kate, save us from this. Save us from this with the next beer on your list.
Go Sox. No. Okay, we'll go back to Montana, Bozeman specifically, to Map Brewing's Great Wave Sake Lager. Map is a fantastic brewery, and I think it's because they have this relentless commitment to quality and to refining their processes and to sensory. And I've watched the way they take that very seriously with their employees, and it really shows. They win medals for their beer, and it's always a great experience there. But this sake lager, it's hopped with Nelson Sauvin. It's really smart. I just think the way the Nelson and the sake yeast work together is really memorable. There was like lemongrass and lychee, and then this really beautiful effervescent carbonation kind of slides in and just lifts everything off the palate. It was one of the most fun beers I drank this year, and just something totally different and really smart. Like every part of this recipe is there for a reason, and executed really, really well. And such a great beer. I wish more people had access to it.
I'm 100% on board with you on this one. They have sent it a few times to us for review, and all the extras always go home with me because it's just such a it's one of those singular beers where it's like, oh, this is it has a little different character to it, but all of the pieces work so well and make for such a drinkable beer. It's light but also flavorful, and it has this uniqueness without feeling like it's just some stunt. I mean, it all just pulls together so well. No, that's a beautiful beer and a great choice. Joe, what's next on your list?
We're not quite going to Franconia. We're going to Bellingham, Washington.
Bellingham, the Franconia of Washington.
Yeah, great lager town. Besides Otherlands, which this is Otherlands Household Gods, before I ramble and forget to mention the name of the beer, which happens. You got Chucklenut in the same town. You got Larrabee doing some great stuff. And
Caution, Wander, and Boundary Bay. Like there's just this.
I'm pretty sure I had Otherlands on my list last year.
Stemma. That town is so insane.
We had Otherlands in the best 22 years ago. So he doesn't need another shout from us. But this also came really close to cracking our 20, and it did really blindly did really well at the table. So I thought I'm going to slide this in again because it's just that good. What Ben Howe is doing and trying to capture sort of the essence of Franconian lager, particularly with this beer. And we do have a recipe for it on our website too.
Are the pHs correct in that recipe, or do we need to adjust them?
Yeah, that's. We probably don't want to go too deep in the technical discussion. Look up the article and the recipe,
or listen to the podcast.
But there's a really lovely earthy bitterness, a minerality to it, still a brightness, and then he's getting this subtle stone fruit peachy character that through fermentation mostly. And you could pick it apart all day, or you can just sit there and drink it and talk all night. And it's just such a great beer, and had to slip it in here for sure. And I love that also he's doing these holds fast kegs on Gravity a few nights a week. So definitely make the pilgrimage. If you can't get to Franconia, you can get to Bellingham, Washington, and get a piece of it.
If this beer weren't on your list, it would be on my list. And obviously, it's fresh on our mind. We were up in the area and recorded a podcast with Ben recently. But the beers are just a joy. They show that you can build so much character, that lager isn't always about minimalism. In this case, it's about, I think, as Stan said, flawed in such a perfect way. I butchered that one. How did you say it, Stan?
This beer has so many flaws, but it's perfect.
Exactly. All right, Stan, what's the next beer on your list?
The next beer is a collaboration between Our Culture, which is a brewery in waiting, so to speak, and Creature Comforts. Creature Comforts is in Athens, Georgia. Our Culture is in metropolitan Atlanta. I don't want to go on too long, but the beer is called Brew for One Fonio Lager. So it's got the Fonio grain, which Garrett Oliver has been championing, and some breweries are starting to experiment with. And every time I taste one of these beers, I get something different. It's got that really nutty, earthy part, but it produces a surprising, almost tropical aroma, sometimes fruity. And it's like I said, it's a bit of a surprise. So this beer was brewed at Creature Comforts, what was released, and also the money from Brew for One goes to the Michael Jackson Foundation. So it's got a lot of aspects to it. The others are that the founders of Our Culture, really appreciate this because of their African heritage. And on the can, you've got a Sankofa bird, and that is reaching back, both to their heritage, but also they want to think in terms of reaching back and bringing this grain into modern brewing.
Should also note this beer scored a 97 with the blind panel of Craft Beer and Brewing, was one of the top scorers around that. So, an excellent example of how these ingredients, interesting ingredients that have a great story behind them, can also just make killer beer.
While the beer became the beer in Athens, all of the principles at Our Culture had already brewed with Fonio at home, so they understood how to use it, which is an important part right now for brewers to start to explore different ways to use it.
There's a Fonio beer on my personal list as well this year, that Ketos beer that Patrick made that was perfectly clear. absolutely unbelievably cool to be able to make a beer like that. And I think the options that this brings, showing that it can work into another grain bill, lighten things, but also, provide some awesome, kind of flavor that complements beer. And like, it's right there with, some Southern Hemisphere hops and some of these kinds of notes that, that are so of the moment, right now. And, anyway, so lots of potential there. And I think we're only starting to tap it, and it's cool to see brewers, coming up with beers that really, make the most of that grain and its flavor. All right, Kate, what's next for you?
This beer is called Cuvée Soleil. It's from Ale Song Brewing in Eugene, Oregon. But I drank it in maybe the least glamorous setting. So many of our critics' picks have been about really beautiful beer drinking experiences at ballparks or cozy pubs. I drank this at a distributor showcase. So you're in a terrible conference room with folding tables and bad lighting. But it succeeded despite its rough setting. So this is there's tangerine fruit and Pinot Gris grapes aged in French oak and in this beautiful little wild ale. It sounded to me kind of off the wall at first. I was like, I don't know about tangerine and like Pinot Gris grapes. This sounds weird. Nope, it was excellent. The wood lent a kind of a vanilla dollop that I think with the tangerine made like an Orange Julius moment. And you know how some mixed culture beers have that sort of that really just quenching aspect to them, where it's like, is this beer wetter than other beers? How is this possible? That's how I felt while drinking this. Really refreshing and a really bright, lovely beer.
Awesome. Good stuff. Joe, what's next on your list?
Yeah, this one's not wet or wet watery. Could go the other end of the spectrum. I had a few great Baltic porters this year, including the one that made our top 20 list, the Dronta Black from Radiant. Fantastic beer. We all love that one. And also, just a few nights ago, we were in Issaquah, Washington at Formula, and he had the Daydream. Jesse Heather had the Daydream Stream on tap, which was a collab with Whitney Burnside from Grand Fur. That was really good too, like that bigness and smoothness that you want from a Polish porter. And a Polish porter is actually what I'm putting here because it was just so good. The Wiedawa 12th Anniversary Barrel Aged Imperial Baltic Porter, which I actually scored a 95 with our blind panel earlier this year. I would have probably scored it higher, but that's how it goes. And I didn't have it on the table blind either, so you never know, right? But anyway, it was just so delicious. Like you get this big enticing nose of whiskey-soaked figs rubbed in cocoa powder and dark brown sugar, and then just that big smooth body you want. Subtle roast, not an inch of like burn or astringency or acridness at all. And it's just super round, lush, and crazy drinkable where you could have more when you shouldn't. And that was a lovely beer that I had a bunch of Polish porters sent to our friend Evan Rail's place in Prague because I knew I was going to Prague, and ordered them there and then lugged them home and loved getting stuck into this one.
I made you awfully jealous last December when I was in Wrocław and popped out to the Widawa brewery with Grzegorz Zimian from Stu Mostów. And so we got to go out and meet Wojtek out there. And,
he's a master, yeah.
Drink some Baltic porter at the brewery. And no, I agree with you. I probably would have rated it higher than our blind panel did. There's that funny thing. You get there and you realize, you taste enough that have that smoked plum kind of character to them. It's like, oh, it makes so much sense. And maybe we think about dark fruit in a different way here in the United States, but there, it's just it's so just omnipresent and makes so much sense. Anyway, no, that's a great beer and a great choice. Let's talk a little bit more about your list. Before we do that, when it comes to packaging your brew, think Heartprint. The original and digital can printing with 3 locations across North America, the Heartprint team has your back from concept to can. Count on fast turnarounds, no minimums, graphic design support, and rock-solid can quality, all on 100% infinitely recyclable cans. Get 10% off your first can order when you mention the Beer and Brewing Podcast. Open an account at heartprint.com or email info@heartprint.com for details. All right, Stan, let's get back into the list. What's next on yours?
Side project La Belle Fleur number 2. Second St. Louis beer on my list. You'd think I still live there. And we used to live less than a mile from Side Project Brewing. And probably second wave right behind that first wave that Joe wrote about, Side Project comes to life and gets lots of attention for their barrel-aged beers, but particularly the big, black, strong ones. And if we're talking about that craft beer is not actually dead, beers like that will remind you that Saison is not dead, that there's still really good ones out there. It's just so much going on, but the biggest thing to me was that shift. You get a bold, bright fruit flavor, and then the overripe, more subtle fruit flavor. It's astonishing. And then super retronasal, a little bit of hay on the back of your nose as you were exhaling. Just, as I said, many of my beers are about the experience. It's nice to sit there, but there are beers that you taste and you go, if I tasted this blind, this would be a 100.
I'm with you on the Saison thing, Stan. I think the fact that it might not be as cool anymore makes it all the more fun. And, I've now find wherever I am, I just have, if they've got a good mixed culture Saison on, I just have to drink some. I was at Proletariat in New York City a few weeks ago, and they had a Fox Farm mixed culture Saison on. Like, I'm 100% going to order that because everyone else is going to order the IPA. And this beer needs, I want to taste it. And I also, want to die on that Saison hill. So, all right, Kate, what's next on your list?
I think we need a more positive atmospheric story than the last one. So we'll go to Suncatcher Brewing in Chicago. The Pub Ale, very simply named. It's a dark mild. The day that I visited Suncatcher, it was a weekday, I don't know, like a Wednesday afternoon. So the tap room was extremely quiet around like noon. But it was raining that day, and this beer was just so comforting. And Suncatcher's tap room kind of feels like a living room. It has like great armchairs and pillows and house plants. And it was just the coziest way to pass a rainy afternoon. Matt Gallagher, Suncatcher is his relatively new brewery. He's the co-founder and former brewer at Half Acre. So obviously very responsible for a lot of the great beer scene in Chicago. This beer is so lovely and comforting. It was like your favorite hoodie, kind of just cozy and something you could always come back to. I kind of wish I could go back and just recreate that entire afternoon. So,
sounds fantastic. Can't wait to come check that brewery out at some point here in the future. Joe, what's next on your list?
Yeah, well, our Midwestern bias is going to be showing pretty strong here because
Chicago.
We really didn't consult each other much on our 10, so it's just kind of shaken out this way. But one of my must-dos when I was there is I had to get over to the Is Was tap room. I'd never been there before, but I love what they're doing. And I started off with the beer I most wanted to try, which was the Bourgeois Daydreams table beer, 3.2%. It brings all that sort of complexity you'd want from a Saison with little, this spiciness and of course quite dry and has that low level rustic funk to it too, but none of it is off-putting or intrusive. And there's also this really just nice lemony character that I feel like may be coming from Spelt and then it may be coming from Brett and or maybe coming from hops, and I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it's just like that is a beer you can just crush all summer or anytime. It's just really, really good, and enjoyed it very much. And I'd love to see more beers like that. I wish I knew how to make them just sell like crazy. Mm-hmm. Our market's not really set up for that. because lower alcohol beers are not really cheaper most of the time. But it's we can dream.
Zero Plato, low ABV, mixed culture table beers are the future. I'm convinced of this. I think these are and Kate can speak about this because we've had long conversations, and she's been writing around the same subject at some of my urging. But I think this is exactly what the natural wine world truly wants. And once they realize that these beers are all of that fun, funk, and character and acidity that they're looking for, but also done in controlled, measured, thoughtful ways, but also entirely dry, and therefore in that kind of health sense, providing a lower sugar intake overall. That it's just such a perfect thing for all of them.
And I think they share a sort of aesthetic or occasion-based moment with some natural wines in that they're endlessly just drinkable in a meal setting or with friends or daytime, where you can sit there and pick them apart, as we all do, but you can also just drink them with people who don't really know what they're drinking and will probably like it, which I think some of those easy breezy natural wines aspire to that, and like table beer's been doing it forever.
I've just had too much natural wine that did not hit the right mark, and I can say I have not had a 3.2% dry table beer from a beer producer in the current environment that has not made me extraordinarily happy. All right, Stan, what's next on your list?
Well, it's from Varietal Beer Company, where Daria and I were in the Yakima Valley about a week before you guys, maybe 10 days. And our first stop was Varietal. They had 3 fresh hop beers on, and when I tasted the fresh sesh, which is about a 4.5% beer, and I thought, this beer is probably going to be on my list. It's just like the Amarillo, which is from Loza Farm, was so good. And it was just like walking into a freshly laid kiln. It was spectacular. That's not the Varietal beverage that I'm putting on my list. That's something they call Howl, which is hop water. So no alcohol. And I'll everywhere we go, I'll buy the hop water. And I've had some really good ones. I won't start ticking those off. But this one tastes like hops. And that's really hard because they get kind of rough, and it's kind of like licking a cone. This is just perfectly balanced. So you smell the hops, you taste the hops, and this is a hop water that more people need to be making.
You know who doesn't like this hop water? Your friend Hutch from Cannonball Creek. No, we had a great argument about this hop water with Chris, but it was at the Grains of Wrath Festival right after the same day as the Best of the West judging. Anyway, I'll share that story with you after the podcast is over. But it is funny timing because while I didn't get to go see Chris, and while we were up there very close in Grandview, he did send me a text and wants to talk more about hop water. So we're going to have that conversation and get deeper into this because, I love hop water and love that character without those calories and without that alcohol. Speaking of things that aren't beer, Kate, what's next on your list?
Yeah, let's get weird here. This year I spent, probably the last couple of years, quite a bit of time researching hemp-derived THC beverages. And by researching, I mean reporting on it, but also consuming a bunch of them. And
for science
and for sleep. And I think a lot of them have great effects, but really struggle to be just delicious beverages that you want to drink for just the flavor. Some of them can have kind of a weird, obviously like planty kind of strange note from the THC. But the Kick Fizz Evening Buzz Black Cherry Vanilla Seltzer is so delicious. It's like a retro soda, cherry soda from being a kid. And there are nights that I didn't even really need the THC part. I just kind of wanted to drink the beverage itself, which is one of the first of these THC drinks to do that. It has 2 milligrams of THC, 2 milligrams of CBD. So it's supposed to be this little nightcap, send you off to bed. And I loved it for that on nights when I was like, I'm not going to have a beer or something, but a little treat, a little nightcap. Love it.
I agree with you. And shout out to Julie Rhodes for this one. She's
Yes.
involved in the brand. I had some of this when I was out in Atlanta at the Hemp Beverage Expo. And I think that they've done a really nice job of positioning it around the occasion. You know,
Totally.
they've got a daytime flavor. They've got a nighttime flavor, you know, and they, and that's it. It just, it's perfectly adjusted there for that. I know there's mixed opinions out there on THC beverages. I think, in general, I am here for it. It's not I am still a beer person and love beer first. I will occasionally drink THC beverages, but I'm a very, very rare THC consumer in general. It's just not necessarily my jam. I think that it's important though for the beverage world here, and I think it's important for brewers because as breweries are increasingly tap rooms, places where people get together and drink together and build community together, that having all the beverages that people want to drink at those places is incredibly important. And I don't want other beverage categories. I certainly don't want wine to to move in on this kind of thing. And let's just be honest that the big cannabis world kind of sucks. It's kind of, it just doesn't have the same kind of culture and the same kind of authenticity and the same connection to audiences. And so I think it's important to, in this kind of space for brewers to stake their claim and take these beverages and make them something good. And so I am excited to see more of that innovation from brewers out there in this space. And I think we're only on the front end of that innovation right now. Joe, what's next on your list?
Yeah, this is a beer.
Bold choice. Bold choice.
Sorry to disrupt the trend I was developing there. This is a Pilsner, actually, and it's a Bavarian Pilsner. And it's a Bavarian Pilsner in a Helles region, in a Helles town in Munich, the Giesinger Feines Pilchen. And I think Bavaria is really funny about Pils. They have a lot of really lovely ones full of like hop flavor and aroma. Often not that bitter, but they don't need to be like really delicious. But also drives me crazy. They insist on serving them in these small 33 centiliter servings, sometimes like in a glass with a doily or, and that's fine. Like, it just means I'm going to order more of them, I guess. But I like in the North that they tend to drink it by the half liter, which is when it's really drinkable is what you want. At Giesinger, their neat little tap room just off the Viktualienmarkt in the center of town. You don't have to go very far if you're just there visiting as a tourist for a couple of days. They did refuse to serve it to me in a half liter glass. I had to ask, but it was really delicious. Still had that like nice fresh, middle fruit flavors going through it, but it also enough. Nice firm bitterness to it that just made it like really addictive, and I wanted to kind of just stand there at my little stand-up table all day and watch the crowd and get lost in that beer. Really fun beer.
I saw that tap room when we were in Munich, but did not get a chance to go in. I had to make concessions to my wife, who is up for a certain number of beer gardens, but not all of them. So anyway, got to get back to Munich sometime soon. Stan, the last beer on your list
is a beer.
Okay.
It's a collaboration between two Portland breweries, Wayfinder and Grand Fur. It's called Spider Dance. It's a fest beer. I had it at Top Wire Hop Project, which is within the hop field at Crosby Hops. So drinking this beer, you're surrounded by Cascade hops. That's what they have around the field that aren't going to be picked for about 3 more weeks. And you taste this beer, and my immediate thought is the hops in this beer definitely did not come from here. They are pure German. They've got that floral, rich, spicy, and you put it on a perfect golden fest beer with just that malt flavor that's sensational. And it was just spectacular. And I happened to be chatting with Carl Ackert, who is like, one of the original brewers in the state of Portland. And he said, "What are you drinking now?" And I told him, and then he headed off, and he comes back to me with the biggest smile on his face. So he approved.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Kate, there's a hazy IPA as the last one on your list.
An IPA squeaks onto the list. Yes. This was...
I have made up for all of you all with my own personal list. I'm covering hazy IPA just for taking one for the team on that.
Is that a popular style that people want to know about?
It's less popular with our readers this year, last year and this year than Pilsner. And I will say that There are other styles like dark lager and Helles that are really creeping up, actually, like making a strong play on hazy IPA and pale ale.
Excellent work out there, readers. But yes, hazy IPA. This is from Outer Range Brewing in Frisco. It's called Alpine Dreams. We drank this in our best of beer judging. I think people who just heard my long diversion about different types of baking cherries have picked up that I really enjoy pastry and baking. And this beer had a lot of qualities that made me think about kind of soft pastry dough and like fruit danishes. There's no vanilla in this beer, but it really suggests something like an apricot Danish with icing on top. I mean, obviously quite sweet, but then enough of the malts were sort of like a neutral doughiness that it wasn't just over the top too saccharine. So just a really fun, quite indulgent, I think, hazy IPA with some really lovely flavors that kind of hit up the parts of my brain that love treats.
Good stuff. Joe, you teased at the top that you go back to Asia for the finish of your list. Take us, land this plane for us on the your top 10.
Yeah, well, it's a hoppy saison, and I love hoppy saisons. It's probably my favorite thing to brew at home. Definitely one of my favorite things to drink. And I think there's so much to explore there that hasn't been explored enough. And so, we recently relocated to Seoul, South Korea, and Kelly and I, one of our first date nights out was to a place called Seoul Gypsy. Fantastic food, great atmosphere, just real cozy little place. It's always full of it's full of couples and often just groups of women, which is like maybe, I don't know, maybe all the dudes are out drinking cheap cass and around barbecuing their own beef and stuff, but I haven't quite figured all that out yet. There's still getting a handle on the local scene, but they're doing some really, really cool beers. They're doing a really like immaculate light Helles, but they're doing Czech pours with it, and that's fun. And they're doing a bunch of different IPAs and farmhouse ales too, and sometimes crossing those streams, which I enjoy. And this is the Sopong Saison. It's got a bunch of New Zealand hops in it, and so that tropical is meeting up. It's a mixed culture, I think, because I'm definitely getting some Brett in this beer, and I think it's really cool with like maybe some lime peel from maybe Nelson meeting up with lime peel from Brett and the white wine cellar floor, and those notes just really like meet up in a neat way. And then this just dry all the way through, except there's that juicy hop middle to it. It's light enough beer that it's really just kind of quenching and refreshing, and just a really fun territory to explore. And I'm seeing more of them around anecdotally anyway, like just hoppy saisons. I would love to see maybe hops could be the avenue for saison to kind of make a comeback. Would be really cool. I don't know. Anyway, that was also just kind of a nice moment and a great beer and a great place, and want to drop that in here for sure.
I hear you on hoppy saison. We were talking earlier this week, and I recently had some several-year-old Casey hopped saisons from 2020, 21, and just kind of remarkable how that hop character carries through in those beers, and just a delicious mixed culture. Yeah.
I think it was on my list.
So anyway, here for you. Let's that's the end of everyone's top 10s. We're going to get a couple of the special questions in. And the first question is one actually that Joe came up with. This the crux of this one is a song, a beer, a moment. A song you love, the beer you're drinking with it, and the context in which it happened or should happen. Stan, what was yours, or what is yours?
Two parts of this have happened, but the third part brings them together. The song is "Who Will Stand With Us" from Dropkick Murphys. It's new this summer, and the beer is from Future Primitive Brewing in Seattle.
West Seattle?
It's actually in West Seattle. It's actually in White Center. And the beer is called Nazi Punks Fuck Off, which you also know that's another punk song. So there's a lot of punk to this, and Dropkick Murphys has made it clear this summer, like Ken Casey said, that the far right ain't the new punk. So I want to listen to this turned up to 11 while drinking that Pilsner outside. Future Primitive has a tap room on Alki Beach, spectacular place. I have drank the beer there. I listened to the song turned up to 11, maybe 14 all the time. I just want to do those two together. And I think I'll leave it at that because Fucked Up would probably be the next thing I discussed.
Well, I have ordered that beer on draft at that brewery and enjoyed it in person. And I've also bought a 4-pack to bring home for friends. So I hear you on that. Kate, what is your beer song moment?
Mine is a lot more serene than Stan's. The song is I Walked With You a Ways by Plains. This debut Plains record came out a few years ago, I think 2022. Plains is Katie Crutchfield from Waxahachie and Jess Williamson. So I love Katie Crutchfield's voice so much. So Plains is just another avenue to keep listening to her voice. This song is really just earnestly beautiful. It's about people who come into your life and you have beautiful experiences and then they, maybe you never see them again or they move on, but it's still like an important thing that happened. And so to me, it's kind of melancholy. It's like, it's beautiful, but it's kind of fleeting, like late summer sunsets when you're like, oh, this is one of the last nice summer days. So I imagine that I am listening to this with my waterproof speaker on my paddleboard on one of those late summer days. And that means I am probably drinking Fish On, which is a juicy pale ale from Kettle House Brewing in my town of Missoula. It's like my go-to summer beer. It's relatively low in alcohol, really big, juicy flavors. Just goes really well with all those river activities. And yeah, it'd be nice to be listening to that song on the paddleboard, but I think it's too cold for that now. So I'm melancholy and dreaming of late summer.
So much water figures into so much of Kate's great memories. We've been talking and picking your brain about that Grand Canyon raft trip that you took earlier this year, and so many beautiful memories around water for Kate.
It's useful for beer too.
It's pretty important. Exactly. All right, Joe, a song, a beer, a moment.
Yeah, so it was tempting to go political because, well, these are weird times. I knew Stan was going to, and I thought maybe should go. Well, yeah, I was thinking like Op Ivy, The Crowd. Maybe we need a gathering instead. Thought that'd be good one. But I was like, maybe this is a time when Kate kind of went there too. It's already, but it's a good time to center ourselves and find your happy place. So I got to reach into the old well, and I'm going to push the Midwestern bias even further here and go for the great Midwestern rock and roll troubadour, Bob Seger, whose song Fire Lake sounds like it ought to be symbolic of something really important. And I love that it's not. It's really just about going to the fucking lake. Which is my favorite thing to do, right? It's like if you're from the Midwest, you go to the lake. I did. I went to the lake and I listened to this song at the lake. Was for my sister's birthday. We're there with family, kicking it on the deck. Lake views of Table Rock. This is down in Southwest Missouri in the Ozarks. Like practically grew up on that lake. And the beer, not just that I probably would be drinking with this moment, but I actually did drink it with this moment, is Second Shift Ardent Rosis. One of my all-time favorites, a great Midwestern IPA, kind of still big and bold and just so much fun to drink every time. And so that I'll just kind of fit together into like and when I came up with the question, a song, a beer moment, I actually had no idea what I was going to come up with. I came up with it this morning and I realized that had to be it. But find your happy place.
Missoula was once home to the best named Bob Seger cover band called Close But No Seger.
Yes.
I'll throw mine in here because I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think if I'm thinking about the song, it's going to have to be a track from Elder, kind of prog metal, post metal band out of Boston, now based in Germany. And I think my favorite record is Reflections of a Floating World. And the song Blind, it's somewhere in like the 4.5 minute mark, at the 4.5 minute mark, hits this halftime breakdown that just absolutely crushes. I mean, it's like, I can listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. I got to see them play down at a small club in Albuquerque a couple of years ago with Josh of Marble at the time. I think he's still there. If I'm thinking about the location, it's probably going to be my basement. And, as I'm a middle-aged white guy, and whether it's a midlife crisis or what, I have gone through and relit a lot of the lighting in our house with Philips Hue lighting so that I can control color light scenes. And my wife, it's like, what was this gamer shit that you're doing, with colored lights everywhere? And I'm like, oh, but come on, this is so cool. And my teenage boys they're with me on it. They think it's cool, and it's great to, like, if they're having a sleepover, you can mood out the basement, you can mood out the living room. I would be in my own basement. I would be listening to Elder at full volume on a nice stereo system, because I am an audio geek and a music geek and all of those things. And I think the beer is probably going to be something from Cantillon or Tilcan or something along those lines that I have dragged back, because that's most of what's in my cellar at this point. Maybe a mixed culture saison. Maybe it's could even be a De La Seine beer, Joe. Could even be a De La Seine beer. We'll see. Something in that kind of space.
I didn't mention them at all. I thought this was a great restraint that I didn't. I really wanted to drop the Freundeslager in here. I didn't mention Schönrammer either. Now I've mentioned them both, and you gave me the opening, and I appreciate it.
I was setting you up for that one there. But it's probably one of those, probably a bottle of Cantillon, which I don't tend to get together and drink as much with friends. And so I have these bottles. I'm trying to, you think you're going to save them for the right occasion. And over the years, I've just been giving myself license to open up that 750 of, Cantillon Ashanti or Nath or just straight up Cantillon Gueuze, because that is actually the best beer that they make. And just pour it for myself, drink a few glasses. I might not even finish the bottle. I don't have to, because I get to enjoy that by myself with mood light in full swing, with some just crushing post metal, pouring out of the speakers. And I get to enjoy that full. This is like, 2000 mid 2020s dad rock in full swing, because that's where we are today. So that's my song, beer, and moment. The last question here. This is one that I wrote for obvious personal reasons. The place and experience that convinced you that the death of craft beer is greatly exaggerated. Stan, you got one.
I would say reminded me, because there are so many experiences that remind me. This is one that readers can do in the future, because it happens about 10 months out of the year, not January, February, but it's the third Saturday of every month. It's called Crates and Crafts. It happens in the beer garden, Halfway Crooks Beer Garden, which is kind of around the corner from the brewery. And in this case, a local enthusiast, Mike Moore, has over time built up that he is convincing nationally famous hip-hop artists to come in and spin their discs. At the same time, the crates is people are selling LPs. There's other local craft. But the other part of that is we lived in Atlanta, and you could learn a lot about people from the grocery store they choose to shop in. We lived next to the Carjack grocery store, and walking into the grocery store looked like being in Atlanta. There were many other grocery stores that was not the case. This looks like living in Atlanta, and it makes you think that people are going to drink all these beverages because they have an NA beer. They have some of the best lagers everywhere. They sell slushies. They sell cocktails. They're there to serve everybody, and everybody shows up.
That's just like the European model, right? We take it for granted. But, most of the German, lager brewers also make all the beverages that their community needs from them. And And so I think we can get kind of worked up in this idea that, oh, that's not beer, we shouldn't be doing it. But, the idea is that craft brewers serve communities. We don't just make beer, we serve communities. And broadening that community and speaking to everyone in the community is an important piece of that. No, 100% agree. Kate, for you, what is it?
Yeah, this was an experience I had late last year, probably right after we kind of wrapped up last year's critics list, but I attended a conference at the Culinary Institute of America in Napa, which was exactly as fancy and bougie as it sounds. A lot of big name chefs, a lot of wine people, obviously, when in Napa. There were, chefs and kind of wine experts from all over the world. And at one of the little receptions, the beverage I saw everyone totally geeking out about was Brooklyn's Fonio Rising Pale Ale. And I'm glad we get to talk about Fonio again on this podcast. But all of these, wine geeks and chefs were asking a million questions about how do you get because they were familiar with Fonio as a culinary ingredient, but they were like, well, how do you put it in the beer? And what am I tasting that is from the Fonio? And everyone was recommending it to each other. And Pierre Tam, who is the Senegalese chef who's been so instrumental in importing Fonio to the United States and kind of making a workable supply chain for it, was at the conference drinking the beer. I was like, that's awesome. And so seeing people who really are not like beer people, quote unquote, get so geeked out about this beer through an ingredient and through a story, just reminded me that, it's not just the sensory experience in the glass, it's the story behind the ingredients, and it tells stories about people and agriculture and movement and migration. And it was just really neat to see all these fancy wine folks drinking beer too.
100%. Joe, what's yours?
So one of the very last things I got to do before leaving Bangkok was to attend the very first Thailand Craft Beer Awards. It was really fun. And I don't know who decided this, but somebody decided it was going to be a gala event. So we had to dress up. So Thai craft brewers are like craft brewers everywhere else. They wear heavy metal shirts and ball caps and shorts and stuff. And so to see them, everyone kind of like forced to like put on a suit or a tux or nice, dresses and stuff. And so that gave this kind of this prom atmosphere too, which was super fun. So we drank great beers and we danced and but mainly the awards were the main event. And so to kind of get to see this moment where all of these really good brewers are celebrating each other's work, and it was really cool to kind of see that moment and to be there for it. And I think that kind of thing is not only happening in Thailand. There's an upward trajectory that they're celebrating there. It's not just quality going up; it's definitely going up. But also innovation and finding new ways to draw character, not just inspiration from other places, from Europe and the United States and Australia, New Zealand, but everywhere. And then also, especially from their own country and their own flavors and their own ingredients, brewing with rice and different fruits. And there's so much more that's going to happen there you can't even predict. And that's, again, only one place where that's happening. It was just really cool to kind of be there for that moment before I left.
Yeah, that echoes what Stan and I were talking about in Mexicali last year on the same very podcast, that growth and that energy, that worldwide growth and energy is one of the most exciting things that we're seeing in craft beer today. And but even domestically here in the United States, I still walk into tap rooms, even the closest one to my house, Zwei Brewing, and you can go on at any day for happy hour time, 5:00, and find that place completely packed, jam-packed. You'll find most of days a line out the door just to go order a beer at the bar. And it's just a neighborhood brewery where people go after work and enjoy great lager and a beautiful beer garden. And so, there's still crowds out there. That's not the story for every brewery here in Fort Collins, not by far, but if you do something well, you focus on it and you work hard over many, many years to build a great crowd for what you do. those crowds continue to show up. And so there's still plenty of great stories out there for craft beer, and also plenty of, new things popping in, whether that's Fonio, whether that's new ingredients. You think all the ingredient story has been written around beer. We are far from it. And as beer becomes more and more global, and we get more and more inspiration coming from places, whether it's South Korea or Bangkok, or sub-Saharan Africa, or South Africa, wherever that is, it's only going to make all the beer that we drink even more interesting, and also create new exciting stories for beer drinkers to connect with and enjoy. I think that is a great place to bring it to a close. With G&D Chillers 24/7 service and support, your brewery will never stop. Berkeley Yeast's Dry Tropics London offers their best-selling liquid yeast strain with the ease of use of dry yeast. Hit the refresh button on your fruit flavors with craft concentrate blends from Old Orchard. Release your creativity with the magic of pure uncut Oregon hops from Indy. Santa Clean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. PacTex handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable. And get 10% off your first can order from Heartprint when you mention the Craft Beer and Brewing podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, of course, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on the subscribe button. You can't listen to this episode but not read the Best in Beer issue of the magazine, because of course in every issue Kate writes great features, Stan has great contributions, whether they are your Best in Beer critics list or articles on hops or even blind review judges that you may not realize that he wrote, but there his stuff is. Of course, you see all of Joe's and my work through every page of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine as we work very hard to bring that to you. So go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, make sure that you can read the actual issue to go along with this, because there are also a number of other critics lists, both from me, Matthew Curtis from the UK, Alex Kidd from Don't Drink Beer, and a whole bunch of other Best in Beer content, as well as great stories on brewing beers in the fruit and Belgian and similar realms. Joe, Kate, Stan, thanks for joining me once again, not just for this podcast episode, but for the last few days, awesome days of judging our best 20 beers of 2025. Thanks to all of you all.
Till next year.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, and it's embarrassing how much fun we have.
Thanks to all of you out there who listen and read and create the opportunity for us to get together and do this every year, to think about beer, to ponder it deeply, to think about these trends and try to articulate these things both through flavor and through writing in a way that that helps sum up what we think are these things. Anyway, cheers.
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 This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.